when we talk about the deal, and previously when the talks were held, there were several contentious points, and one being the nuclear capabilities of Iran. And earlier you also mentioned about uranium. And we have reports that the Kremlin from Russia, they say that Washington rejected a Russian plan to take Iran's enriched uranium out of the country so that the off-ramp can be brought in soon. So if even a technical compromise is not addressed by Washington, is it possible that the nuclear capabilities, the contentious point of nuclear capabilities, will be addressed?
Well, I think that if there is a main rationale that Trump keeps making for attacking Iran, it is Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. And that is why the United States joined Israel last year in carrying out an air campaign against nuclear facilities. And so if Trump is to somehow try to sell to the American public and the rest of the world that this war is a success, it was worth the cost, I think he has to have some kind of deal that, if not permanently eliminates Iran's nuclear capability, substantially degrades it, makes it either low-level enrichment or moves Iran to some consortium with its Gulf neighbors so it no longer has control over enrichment. And then I think with the highly enriched uranium, it needs to either leave the country, as you were suggesting, or it needs to be diluted so it goes back to 3% or something along that, so it is no longer close to weapons grade. So there are solutions here. It really is a question of how much compromise are both sides willing to make, and what will Iran deem to be consistent with its sovereignty and consistent with its right to enrichment under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, that it can say, that the regime can say, we have not been defeated, we in fact have won, we have saved face. So this is, I think, what we're going to be seeing in the next days and perhaps weeks, because this is not going to be easy, right? Keep in mind that the nuclear deal that Obama negotiated with Iran, that took almost 2 years. It took 20 months. This conversation with US and Iran has been now going on for about 1 week, less. The idea that we can get this done in a matter of days, it's probably going to take longer than that. We're probably going to need an extension of the ceasefire.
You're right, Dr. Kupchan, you mentioned the extension of the ceasefire, but again, the ceasefire, there is a debate from the Iranian side that Lebanon was included in the ceasefire. And when we talk about this frontier of the war, then Lebanon was hit a couple of times in the past few days. Critical equipment was damaged. World Health Organization has recorded 133 attacks on healthcare since the conflict began. So when repeated hospital strikes, and if I may, it parallels the situation that was present before in Gaza, strikes on hospitals and even the civilian spaces. So what is the boundary here? And about the debate about the potential war crime, has it just erased entirely?
Well, I think that there was some misunderstanding or miscommunication because the Iranian side believed that Lebanon was included in the ceasefire. Israel and the United States said, no, Lebanon is not included in the ceasefire. And as a consequence, you have seen Israel continue to carry out strikes in Lebanon, southern Lebanon, but also in other parts of the country since the ceasefire came into effect. You do now have this diplomatic breakthrough with the Israeli government talking to the Lebanese government. But in the end of the day, I think Lebanon may end up coming to Trump's desk. And if Trump believes that Lebanon and the Israeli war in Lebanon needs to end as part of a deal with Iran, he'll pick up the phone and he'll call Netanyahu and he'll say, and it's over. You need to stop military action in Lebanon. I don't think Netanyahu will have any choice. In some ways, Trump did the same thing on Gaza. So I do think that it's time limited, and that assuming that we do see progress on the US-Iran front, I'm guessing that will then lead to Washington putting pressure on Netanyahu to cease and desist the conflict against Lebanon and Hezbollah.
Of course, Dr. Kapchin, we'll have to wait and see how both sides recalibrate their next moves and if the negotiations are any different from the last time. But for now, thank you so much for joining us in the broadcast and sharing your perspective with us.
My pleasure. Good to be with you.